And finally, to wrap up the term, I want to show you a tool you can use. It's called a break line. And here is the ASME standard for break lines if you have a long part, like a piece of pipe, let's say, or a long flat bar. And notice a few things. And I'm going to talk about how we make these, so hang on. Notice that the place where they broke the thing, it uses a thick line. It uses an object line. Whether we've got a squiggly break line in a round thing or a zigzag break line that just looks like a bite. Oopsie. Now you can also make a long break line with this homemade zigzag thing in it. And here is ASME's alphabet of lines. There's their zigzag thing. You just make that yourself. And notice that if you're making a squiggly line or a zigzag line, you use a thick object layer. If you're making this homemade, whatever you call it, break line, you use a thick line type, like maybe a dimension layer. So now I put in a number of slides here that show you how to make a good-looking pipe break line. Let me back up here. So see how ASME's looks? That looks rather sophisticated. Here's the one in the book. This doesn't really look too good. So I want to show you how to do it correctly. This is out of an old-time drafting textbook. You can tell it's left over from the days of board drafting with pencils. We won't go through this and we won't practice it because it doesn't come up that often, but I wanted you to have the how to do it steps in case you need to. So this does step you through step by step. Here's what you do, and I try to show you exactly what to do when. Now, let's say you had a 31-inch long pipe and you put those squiggly break lines in it, and then you need to dimension the length of the pipe. You can dimension the length, but because you've broken the pipe, it's not really 31 inches long. So what you do is you put one of these jogs in your dimension line, and that means not to scale. Let's go look at what we mean by that. Let's go look at this CAD drawing. So here is an example. This is a rack, you know, like going in a rack and pinion. And let me get a dimension layer current. All right. So if I want to dimension the length of that thing, well, okay. That's kind of hard to see. Now what if I want to dimension some other stuff close up? Bummer. Looks like it is 24 inches long. But if I want to go to my paper space and I want to be able to see these teeth clearly, they're really small here. Let's go to paper space. See, I want to be able to see the shape of those teeth clearly and be able to put a few dimensions on here. So what I want to do is cut the middle out of this long rack and put some squiggly break lines, and now I can blow this up at a bigger scale. I can now do a scale of 1:1 and it will fit fine. Let's see what it looks like when I try to get my little rack in here. Oh man. So if I try to show the whole rack, it's just, oops, it's just way too small. So I want to, let's go back to model space. I want to make this break thing. So let's zoom in here. And by the way, this phantom line here means there are more teeth across the top. This is, phantom line means stuff that isn't there. It's a ghost. I made some homemade squiggles, and I just used a polyline. What I do, I go there. Now I'll get a polyline, and I'll start somewhere on the line. See, I've got the nearest O-snap. Now, if it keeps annoying you by snapping back to the line, you might want to turn off your O-snaps. I do that sometimes. So here I'm just going zigzag. Okay, there's my zigzag. Now I will get a trim command and trim out the line in the middle of my zigzags. So that's all you do. Totally homemade. I will erase that. Okay, now I'm going to dimension this. I'll get a dimension command. Uh-oh, problem. We just saw that this rack is supposed to be 24 inches long, but I've taken a big old bite out of it, the middle of it, so my dimension is not right. This is the one time when it is acceptable to edit a dimension. Don't do that normally, but you can here. I gotta tell you well, no, I have a long story. Well, let me tell you part of the story. I worked for a company that had a drafter who was really, really fast. I have slow processing speed, so I'm the opposite of fast, and I could never figure out how she did it. And we had a department meeting, and the chief engineer asked her to explain to us how she did it, and she said stuff I couldn't understand. I don't know what she said. So I just kept bumbling along and going slowly. And one day I had to make a new design, and as often happens in companies, I started with a previous design that already existed in the company, and I was going to modify that to make my new design, and it happened to be one of her drawings. And so I'm drawing along, I'm sticking this on what I think is a 12-inch beam, and that on what I think is an 18-inch space, because that's what her dimension said, so on and so forth. And finally, after I'd gone hours down the road, I discovered that why she was so fast was she just drew shapes that looked about right and then put dimensions on them and changed the dimension text. For her, that was fast. For the rest of us, it was a recipe for an expensive disaster because we were counting on these dimensions being accurate. And it turned out they weren't, and so we could not build off any of these existing shapes in CAD. They were not correct. So let this be a lesson to you. Do not do that to any of your colleagues. If you put a dimension on a part, it had better be the actual dimension. Like that really is 2.5 inches wide. Don't change that. If you put a break line in, that is the one time you are allowed to edit the dimension because you have clearly shown that this part is broken and not to scale. So there I have done that. I have edited my dimension text. Now I must do one more thing. I want to put one of those squiggly breaks on my dimension line. And where do I find that? I look around here, nope, nothing there. I look around here, nope, nothing there. So looks like I'm going to have to go to the Annotate tab where there are going to be some more tools hiding. Aha, look at that. Dimension jog line. And see, they're showing you what it's going to be. So I'm going to choose this jog line from the Annotate tab. What is it saying? Select dimension to add jog. Okay, click. Now what? Specify jog location. Okay, how about if I click right there? Boop, it puts in a jog. Now I have clearly told the reader I have cut this part, and you can tell that by these break lines. And I have edited the dimension text, and you can tell that because I put a jog in the line. So there's a handy dandy tool for you. We won't be drawing apart with these this term, but I wanted you to know that this was available. If you come back around next year and do some second year classes, I think we have 1 or 2 drawings where we will get to use these. So there you are, my friends. You have made it. You've made it through the entire term. Good job.